She waited at the station every single day. Through storms that buried the rails, through summers that scorched the desert, through winters that froze her breath into mist, Clara stood there, holding a silver timetable and a promise. But promises don't always survive the Wild West. So when the train whistle finally screamed across the horizon, the question wasn't just would he return? It was would he live long enough to reach her before the bullets did? The station looked like a graveyard at sundown. Its wooden planks creaked under the breath of a cold wind, and the iron tracks gleamed like two endless knives disappearing into the desert dusk. She stood there, same as yesterday, same as the week before, her shawl wrapped tight against the air that smelled of coal smoke and rain that never came. The whistle rose in the distance, long and aching. A freight train thundered past, its carriages rattling, throwing sparks into the evening. Her hair whipped across her face, but her eyes never blinked. She scanned every passing window, every blur of shadow. Nothing. Not him. People had stopped asking why she waited. At first it was whispers. He's dead. He ran. No man stays gone this long unless he means to. But she ignored them all. The only thing she heard was his voice, echoing from that night. I'll come back. Wait for me at the station. No matter how long it takes. The train vanished into silence, leaving her in a storm of dust. The lamplighter struck his flame, lifting it toward the crooked pole. She still didn't move. Her fingers clutched the small silver timetable he had pressed into her palm, a trinket dulled by years of waiting. A boy sweeping the platform paused. Miss Clara, don't you think maybe he... Her gaze snapped to him, sharp enough to silence the rest. If he's alive, he'll find me here. And if he's dead... Her voice cracked but steadied again. Then I'll still be here. To know. A storm rolled far across the desert, lightning flickering like rifles in the dark. She lifted her chin, her silhouette cut against the fiery horizon. The town thought her hope was foolish, but hope, out here, could be more dangerous than a gun. And tonight, with the sky splitting and the earth trembling under steel, one question burned louder than the whistle. Had he broken his promise, or had something darker kept him away? The night before he left still burned bright in her memory, like an ember she couldn't put out. The saloon piano had been playing too fast, too loud, as though the ivory keys could cover up the fear trembling through the room. He stood by the door, hat in hand, shoulders squared in the way a man did when he was about to ride into hell. Clara, he whispered, pulling her close, his voice rough from dust and whiskey. His jaw was unshaven, his blue eyes rimmed with exhaustion, but there was no mistaking the fire in them. They're offering $500 on the McCreedy gang. It's the only way I can buy us a life, land, a house, a future. She clutched at his coat. 500 ain't worth your blood. He kissed her forehead, lingering as if he might not pull away. From his pocket he drew a silver train timetable, polished and gleaming under the lantern light. Meet me at the station when the job's done. I'll come back, I swear it. The room had fallen quiet. Old men hunched over their cards, women with painted lips watching from the stairwell. Everyone knew the McCreedy gang chewed up bounty hunters and spat them out like bones in the dirt. But he walked out anyway, boots echoing across the floor, like the toll of a funeral bell. She followed him into the street, the desert night heavy with stars. Elias, she cried. He turned, and for a moment the hardness melted. He stepped back to her, pulled her against him. The kiss was deep, desperate, tasting of dust and fear and promise. When he finally broke away, the night seemed colder. His horse stamped impatiently. He mounted, tipped his hat once, and rode off into the darkness. The silence he left behind was heavier than the gun he carried. From that moment on, every sunrise Clara carried the silver timetable like a relic, the echo of his vow etched into her bones. But in the Wild West, promises were tested by blood, and out on the trail, Elias would soon learn that some men had no intention of letting him keep his word. Seasons passed like pages turning too quickly, each one tearing at Clara's heart. Spring brought dust storms that whipped across the station, Yet she stood beneath them, eyes stinging but unyielding. Summer boiled the rails until they shimmered, like molten silver, yet she shaded her brow and watched. Autumn carried red leaves through the streets, scattering them across her boots, and still, she waited. Winter came last, cruel and bitter, frost crawling over the timetables pinned to the wall. By then, the town had its stories. Some whispered Elias had fallen to the McCreedys, left in some nameless canyon. Others said he'd taken the bounty money and run, leaving Clara a fool on the platform. A few cruel voices called her mad. One man, though, took her patience for weakness. Sheriff's Deputy Thomas Harlan, young, polished boots, clean-shaven face, began tipping his hat every time he passed her. At first it was harmless. Then he lingered, smiling too easily. "A woman like you shouldn't waste her days on shadows," he said one evening, offering his arm. "I could give you a life right here." Her reply was cold enough to freeze his smirk. "My life was promised elsewhere." But doubt crept in at night, when the station lamps burned low and her own reflection in the glass looked like a stranger. What if Elias had chosen not to return? What if waiting had made her blind to the truth? Then came the letter. Folded paper, edges torn, slipped under her door by some nameless hand. The words were rough, written in haste. "Clara, he lives. But the McCreedys know his face. If he rides this way, he won't reach you alive. The station ain't safe. Don't be there when the next train comes." Her hands trembled as she read it. For the first time, fear outweighed faith. If the letter was true, then her waiting had painted a target on both of them. She pressed the note to her chest, eyes closing against the storm of questions. If Elias was alive, he was walking into death. If he wasn't, then someone was playing a cruel trick. The whistle sounded far off, carrying across the plain like a warning, and Clara knew the next train would not come empty. Out here in the wild, West, every promise is tested by dust, bullets, and time. If this story's gripped you so far, don't ride on without us. Subscribe and saddle up for more tales of love, loss, and survival. Because the next twist in Clara's wait might change everything. The sun bled into the horizon like a wound, painting the sky in violent reds. Clara stood at the edge of the platform, her shawl whipping in the evening wind. The letter still burned in her pocket, every word pounding in her head. She should have stayed away. She should have listened. But if Elias was alive, this was the only place he would look for her. The sound of hooves broke the silence before the train whistle ever came. 4 riders, dark shapes against the dying light, moved in from the east. Dust followed them like smoke. Their rifles glinted as they spread out, circling the station yard. McCreedy men. Clara's heart slammed against her ribs. She had no gun, no allies, only resolve. She stepped back against the station wall, her breath catching. The boy who swept the platform froze in the doorway, eyes wide with terror. She motioned sharply for him to run, and he vanished inside. One of the riders dismounted, swaggering forward with a grin that showed more teeth than kindness. Well, the widow in waiting. His boots thudded on the wood. "We heard. Elias might be foolish enough to come back for you. Thought we'd welcome him proper." Her hands clenched at her sides, but her voice did not shake. "If he comes, he'll see me standing here. And if you plan to stop him, you'll have to." "Shoot me first," the man chuckled, low and cruel. "That can be arranged." He raised his pistol, the barrel gleaming under the lantern light. At that moment, the faint wail of the train whistle rose in the distance, cutting the air like a blade. Every rider turned toward the sound. The ground began to tremble, iron wheels screaming their approach. Clara's breath came hard, but her eyes never left the rider's gun. Hope and fear tangled inside her chest. Was Elias on that train, or was it just another empty promise roaring past? And if he was there, would he even make it through the ring of guns waiting to cut him down? Friend or foe, she whispered to herself. Salvation, or a crueler fate? The rails began to shudder, and the moment of reckoning came rushing with the whistle. The train screamed into the station, sparks flying from its iron wheels as smoke billowed into the night. The McCreedy riders tightened their circle, rifles raised, eyes fixed on the cars that thundered past. Clara's chest heaved. Every shadow in those windows could be him or nobody at all. The lead rider spat. "He won't make it off alive." The locomotive ground to a halt. Steam hissed. The door to the passenger car creaked open, and for a heartbeat, nothing moved. Then, Elias stepped down. His hat was low, his duster torn, his jaw set like stone. He carried no bounty, no money, just the weight of scars carved by survival. Clara's cry caught in her throat. He was alive. "Clara!" he shouted, spotting her across the platform. But before she could answer, a rifle cracked. Wood splintered near her head. The McCreedys opened fire. Elias dove behind a luggage cart, returning shots with the speed of a man who'd been hunted too long. Bullets sparked off iron, shattered glass. The train whistle wailed again. Drowning screams. Clara ducked low, clutching, the silver timetable tight against her heart. One rider charged up the steps, pistol aimed at her. She froze. Then Elias burst from cover, tackling the man before he could fire. They grappled, fists and blood and fury. The rider's gun slid across the boards, straight to Clara's feet. Her hands shook as she bent, fingers curling around the cold steel. She'd never fired a weapon. But when the rider staggered to his knees, sneer aimed at Elias, she raised the pistol. Her voice trembled. "You won't take him from me." The shot rang out, echoing across the plains. The rider collapsed. Silence followed, broken only by the hiss of the train and the groans of the wounded. The other McCreedys scattered into the darkness, their courage spent. Elias pulled himself up, bleeding but standing. He staggered toward her, eyes wide, not with shock, but with pride. "You waited." Tears streaked her dust-stained cheeks. "I told you I would." He took her hand, pressing the timetable between them. "Then let's not waste another minute." The whistle shrieked one last time as the train pulled away, carrying the smoke of battle with it. On the empty platform, amid blood and silence, two souls stood together at last. And in the Wild West, love that survived bullets and time was rarer than gold. If Clara's courage and Elias's return stirred something in you, don't just let this story fade like smoke on the horizon. Like this video, subscribe, and ring the bell. Because out here in the Wild West, love may be scarcer than water, but it always finds a way.